We go back to the beginning of things, the book of Genesis, which is often called a book of beginnings. And the beginning begins in this way. In the beginning, God. In the beginning, God. And then throughout chapter 1 of Genesis into chapter 2, verse 4, the writer spins out a beautiful image, a poetic image of the world. God speaks and it happens. Genesis, as we know, is not a science book, doesn't claim to be a science book. This telling of how God spins creation into being isn't literal. It's not meant to be literal. It helps us to see how it is that the creativity of God leads to what we know today, but it's not science. In the beginning, God. Genesis chapter 1, verse 5, the writer says that God creates the light and calls it day, and God creates the darkness and calls it night. So both the light and the dark are absolutely necessary for us to live. We know that our 24-hour days are about light and dark, and the cycle keeps going one after another. So in the beginning, God spins out creation, light and darkness, both incredibly important parts of what it means to be placed on this planet and in the universe that we come to know more and more about every day. My brother-in-law worked at Mammoth Cave National Park for about 20 years, and by the time he reached the apex of his career, he was the chief of interpretation. And he wore the national park hat with pride and was really good at what he did. How many of you have been to Mammoth Cave before? All right, some of you have, some of us have. When you go down into the cave, for those of you who haven't been there, you go down these steps and you enter into this amazing contiguous network of caves. Truly amazing. One of the things that you can experience if you want to in Mammoth Cave is that your group will be walking down one of the pathways, and you're warned about what's going to happen, but your guide, a member of the National Park staff, once you're kind of settled and standing in a safe place, will do this. Absolute dark. You can't see your hand. You can't see your beloved, whose hand you might be holding, and maybe even a little harder now in the dark, because you're disoriented, maybe even a little bit afraid, even though you know that the light will eventually come on, or you hope that the light will eventually come on, there you are. Now, if you were in that kind of experience of absolute darkness, how might that feel? What might that be like for you? David, I need your help. How would that be for you if you were in absolute darkness? Come again? It would be the opposite of epiphany. You want to come up and just continue here? Well done. It would be the opposite of epiphany. Or it would be an epiphany of nothingness. It would be an epiphany of disorientation. It would be an epiphany of darkness. It would be an epiphany that you would rather get out of probably as quickly as you could. So being in the darkness can be disorienting if you're in it for too long. Some of us live in a state of darkness, whether we want to or not, at times. Some of us find ourselves in that place of darkness and disorientation and would like to get out of the darkness into the light so that the epiphany of Jesus could be revealed to us. John says this, words of hope: the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The darkness has not overcome it. So if you find yourself living in a dark place, if you find yourself having dark thoughts about you and your life and whether you deserve to be brought into the light, John in Jesus reminds us the darkness will not overcome it. There will always be a source of light. So John tells us about John the Baptist, who was the point man. If you know anything about history and if you know anything about war, you know that the point man goes ahead and often doesn't make it beyond leading the forces into that particular direction. So John is the point man, and things don't turn out too well for John, and things don't turn out too well for the one to whom he points. Jesus, the light of the world, but here he is, and he is saying, here it is. Here's the light. He is the one. This is the one who will save you. This is the one who will bring you into the light. But John says people love darkness rather than light, and I think sometimes that can be true. Sometimes we would rather hide in the darkness than be seen. Sometimes we would rather hide in the darkness than to have to interact with people and situations around us. So there are times, I think, when we do actually love darkness rather than light. And so we find ourselves at time, by choice or not, living in the darkness, not being able to quite navigate where we would like to go because we feel lost, we feel disoriented. And so by choice or by circumstance, we often find ourselves living in the darkness. It may not be a good place to be. It may not even feel good, but sometimes that's where we end up. One of the great insights of the reformer named Martin Luther was his understanding of what it means to be human. What Martin Luther said, and the most important word in Martin Luther's analysis of who we are as human beings, was and. We are good and bad. We are lost and found. We are children of the light and children of the darkness. We are saint and sinner. We are complicated as human beings. And if you live for any period of time, you know that that's true. Now, you could say it's not, but the reality about us is that we can be fairly complicated. We can find it difficult to kind of understand that to be both this and that requires some insight, requires some willingness to take a look at who we are. How many of you have seen the latest Star Wars movie? Yeah, that's an epiphany. So that's the 9th of a reasonably good series of movies. The best were the ones that started in 1977. The 3 prequel movies were awful. I saw all of them 4 or 5 times. I watched them anyway, even though I didn't think they were all that great. Darth Maul and the Sith and all of that. And then we've had 3 after the originals. The last one is out now. It's a pretty good film. Why is it that over all of these years, starting in 1977 to 2020, why is it that we have been drawn to the Star Wars movies? Thank you, David. It is a mythology of what? Darkness? Darkness versus light? Good versus evil? That's right. The evil empire, Master Luke, all of the rest. It's a mythology of black and white, good and evil. Otherwise, why would people spend billions of dollars watching this series of 9 movies, most of which are fairly average? Because we're drawn to this. We are. We love this darkness and light, good and bad. There's something about us that likes to see that. And I think it's because we know that's how life is. We know that's how we are. The battle of good and evil rages within and around us. Shifting to Harry Potter. Sirius Black said to Harry, "We've all got both light and dark inside us. What matters is the part we choose to act on." That's who we really are. Even in Harry Potter, it's both and, light and dark. So the question is, which urge will we choose to act upon? That's who you really are. That's who we really are. And we have a choice in that situation to determine how it is we're going to move forward. One of the things that John reminds us of is that darkness exposes the light. So if you find yourself in the darkness and want to be in the darkness, the promise or the threat is that darkness will be exposed by the light. In 1 John we read this: "This is the message we have heard from him and proclaim to you that God is light, and in God there is no darkness at all. So God is different than us. God is not darkness and light. God is light. God is all light. If we say that we have fellowship with him while we're walking in darkness, we lie and do not do what is true. But if we walk in the light as he himself in the light is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. Light comes to us unabashed from a God who is only light, shines in the darkness, and invites us to come out. Plato said this, or at least this was attributed to him. It's pretty good. We can easily forgive a child who's afraid of the dark, right? That would make sense. A lot of kids are afraid of the dark. I was afraid of the dark as a kid. I was talking to somebody the other day and said one of the reasons I was afraid of the dark was a soap opera called Dark Shadows. Barnabas Collins. I am really dating myself, but right now I don't care because he scared me and made it difficult for me to go down the steps into our cellar because there were openings between those steps, and I thought for sure he would grab me. So it makes sense for kids to be afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when women are afraid of the light. When we'd rather hide out in the darkness. When we're afraid of the light because if we're seen in the light, we might see leftover stuff from when we had acne as a teenager, or worse. We might be seen for all of our quirks and faults and idiosyncrasies, and we'd rather not be seen that way, so we might be afraid of the light. We have dark secrets, all of us, every single one of us. And you might be sitting there now squirming, even though I'm not even looking at anybody, even though I'm not looking at you. We have these dark secrets. And the problem with secrets is that they hold us back. They keep us from living fully. And they keep us from being able to fully enter into relationships with other people, even God. And so we have these dark secrets, and what are we going to do with them? How is God going to respond to them? And so we play hide and seek in the dark. You've played hide and seek before, or capture the flag, or kick the can, or ghost in the graveyard. They're all variations on the same theme. We hide behind trees. We hide behind rocks. We hide over the corner of the house. We hide in a tree fort. We play this game of hide and seek, and we play it with God because somebody somewhere has told us that if God sees us as we are in big, big trouble. And so we play this hide and seek. The truth, friends, is that God sees us clearly. Whether it's in the darkness or the light, God sees us clearly. And God is relentless in coming after us, not to condemn us and not to point out all of the faults, all of the idiosyncrasies. God sees us and keeps coming after us, even in the dark, to say that we are loved, to say that God wants to be in a relationship, that God embraces us with all that we bring, all of the andness of being human, good and bad, lost and found, saint and sinner. God embraces all of it, comes into the darkness and says, I'm here for you. I found you. I found you. And I found you because I want you to know how much I am in love with you, how much you matter to me, how much I want you to feel safe coming out into the light. That's what God does when God finds us. It's all about forgiveness and a chance to start again, a chance to be renewed. I love Psalm 27:1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Certainly not God. Certainly not God, because God is our light. Certainly not God. That's not how God works with us. This is a wonderful statement by Marianne Williamson, and I'd like for you to hear it and see if you can embrace it. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. We were born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. We have been made to powerfully live in the light of God. Powerful people, full of God's light, powerful people going out into the world. So today, when you go home, I want you to find a flashlight in your house. If you don't have one, go buy one. Find a flashlight in your house. Make sure the batteries are working. Make sure the light can shine. And I want you to take the flashlight, and I want you to find someone in your life who might be hiding in the dark. And they're afraid to come out because they're afraid if they do that bad things will happen. So I invite you to take your flashlight, be like John the Baptist, and point the light at them and say, guess what? God sees you. God sees you clearly in the darkness and in the light. Guess what? God sees you so that God can love you and embrace you and be in a relationship with you. We have that power within us. So take your flashlight. Find somebody. Tell them about this God who loves us so much, no matter where we are. Pick it up. Take it out. See what happens. Be the light of the world. Amen.